WQAD News 8, this is WQAD This Week.
Good morning. It's Sunday, April 2nd. Thank you for joining us for News 8 This Week. I'm Jon Diaz. Illinois legislators are heading into spring break, and this morning we're taking a look at some of the bills that have been moving through the legislature over the past few months, and we're looking forward to what lawmakers will be working on when the session continues. This week we spoke with Jerry Nowicki, bureau chief for Illinois Capitol News. Jerry has spent the past several years covering Illinois politics. Joining us now is Jerry Nowicki, bureau chief at Capitol News, Illinois. Jerry, thanks so much for taking the time this week to chat with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I imagine there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to sort of try to keep it somewhat organized. But one thing I'm just sort of curious about, before we get into specific legislation, what's the tone been at the Capitol? Let's say over the past couple of months, they're always, and this is, over the past couple of years, really, a lot of contention. What's the tone that you are sensing now?
Yeah, the tone is kind of interesting because there's a level of catch up that's being played. They got a bit of a slow start this year. There were a lot of new representatives, a lot of new senators. So while on deadline weeks, you get a lot of contentious debate over certain bills that do any number of things, there's also this component of these new lawmakers sort of learning the ropes, learning how to get their stuff passed. When someone passes their first bill, for the most part, there's a little bit of camaraderie that's bipartisan to an extent. Oh, congratulations on your bill. Sometimes there's a little fun ribbing in terms of just interesting questions that they ask that try to catch their colleagues off guard. But there's always some level of respect there. And then, you get into the contention when there's a bill that come up, that's any of the numbers of controversial things that's happening that your listeners know well.
The lawmakers headed into spring break pretty soon here. Can you characterize for us the legislation that has been proposed that's moving through? Obviously, you mentioned there was hundreds of bills that you guys are tracking, but is there a general sort of path that they're taking?
Yeah, so there are, I think it was in the range of 6,000 or 7,000 bills filed. So really there's just a whole slew of stuff from general local initiatives for maybe a tax increment financing district in whichever area. And then you get onto some bigger things like changes to the licenses, the driver's licenses, which people who aren't documented residents of the U.S. can receive in Illinois, which is a little bit more contentious than some of the other things. You have a bill that allowed human composting, is the term that they were using to refer to it. You have just a lot of that type of stuff. But what we see generally is that the more controversial issues that are maybe the focus of the Democratic caucus or whatever, those tend to develop a little bit later in the session. They might move as an amendment to a different bill that they can move quickly through both chambers of the General Assembly. And the budget usually comes up later in the year too. Generally in the last couple days of session is when we see the big spending initiatives materialize. So it's just a lot of right now is what I'd call member initiatives, which this person came to Springfield, they were elected to this. I told my constituents we're going to do this. This is the bill that's I'm moving to try to do that now. And there may be changes to some of them, but it's generally the type of thing we're seeing now.
Any bills that have gotten traction that actually surprised you?
I don't find too much surprising these days in what can move so quickly in the General Assembly. But there's a couple of the interesting bills are about the Illinois State Museum. A recent ProPublica News investigation found had the second most Native American remains in its possession as of any state in the U.S. I think so. There was a bill that's sort of aimed at creating a burial ground for the remains that are in the state's possession, and aiming to repatriate those and some artifacts to Native American populations here. Just a lot of interesting stuff like that. There's a ban on indoor vaping that would make it the same as smoking under law. So you can't, have your vape pen, your nicotine vape machine indoors. Another bill would ban the declawing of cats. There's kindergarten reform aimed at making all-day kindergarten mandatory by, I think, 24-25, which still needs to pass in a chamber. So all that type of stuff is the stuff we've been tracking.
And anything in particular you're looking forward to once lawmakers get back to work after spring break?
Yeah, me particularly, I like to follow the state budget. That's one of the things I follow pretty thoroughly. So the governor proposed his budget in February. Now it's up to the lawmakers to say, we're spending too much here. We're not spending enough there. Revenues have continued to perform well per the latest estimates I saw. So the state is going to have somewhere in billions of dollars of surplus for the current fiscal year as it's planning for next one. So the governor has talked about maybe some level of tax cuts. I have no idea what that's going to be. I think it might be more for some business-related incentives that he had passed in 2019. He and lawmakers had passed in 2019, but had sort of been stalled. So it's generally just the dollars and cents that I'll be watching when we come back.
Gotcha. I did want to ask you about those tax cuts. Do you know when we'll get a sense of what the governor is thinking as to where those cuts might go and how long they would last? If they would be temporary or permanent?
Right. So we haven't necessarily been able to pin him down on that, but there were some sort of statements from the Republicans who've been involved in negotiations that said, I think the program was called the Blue Collar Jobs Act, which was incentives for businesses for retaining certain employees in Illinois. And it sounds like there may be some discussion of that, but the governor hasn't said that specifically. So the question is, will it be something that has a year-over-year impact, or will they look at something similar to last year, which was akin to like a $50 check to most Illinoisans, more if you had a child, more if you were married. And then there was a temporary suspension to a gas tax increase. I haven't heard any discussion of anything like that being part of this, but if we're looking to the past as any potential guide, that those could be the types of things that lawmakers again consider.
All right, Jerry Nowicki with Capital News Illinois. Thanks so much again for taking some time to chat with us.
Yeah, no problem.